Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, they, thems, and aliens. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Josh MZ, and today we're going to be doing a little review as I take a ride to work. For this review, as you saw before you, we're going to be diving into the world of electric vehicles with a spotlight on that fantastic Async A1 e-bike. Now let's talk about the A1 bike, specifically the standard version like the one I have here today. This is a futuristic e-bike that is packed with lots of fun, convenience, and features that make it an ideal choice for urban commuting. This is why it's my primary choice of transportation. It comes at a whopping retail price of $2,500. It's on sale now for $19.99. Now let's get into the nitty gritty. Here are the specs. The bike comes with a 20 by 4 inch tires that houses a 1200 watt motor, powered by a 960 watt hour, 48 volts, 20 amp hour battery using Samsung cells. Now what does that mean? Well, that means a whole lot of range and a whole lot of power. Depending on the conditions, they claim anywhere from 25 to 44 miles of range, but we'll get back into that later. Battery takes about 6 to 7 hours to charge with a 3 amp charger. It's got a single gear chain drive, so for those of you who want to pedal, this bike is not for you, so you can click off the video now. It's 117 pounds, which makes it extremely hard to pedal, so you better not be skipping leg days. It's using a cadence sensor, meaning that the speed is not determined by how much force you put into it, but by how often you pedal. It's got a 4-inch LCD two-tone display that shows your speed, odometer, and your modes, that being your choices from 1, 2, and 3, and even a secret 4. Mode 1 brings you up to 20 miles per hour using pedals only. Mode 2 is using 20 miles per hour using throttle. Mode 3 is 28 miles per hour. However, to get into mode 4, you have to press the plus button and the power button at the same time, which fully unlocks the power of the bike, but is made to use off-road only, quote unquote, which lets you get up to 35 miles per hour with throttle or pedals, which is I'm using now. The body is fully aluminum, which means that it won't rust. It's got full suspension using inverted front air shock forks and a monoshock hidden in the inside of the center of the frame, as you sit on a 1.8 integrated cushion. But what makes this bike super unique are the front headlight and the rear brake light. Oh, by the way, when you need to come to a stop, it's got 4-piston hydraulic brakes. Well, that's enough of the features and details. Let me get into a little yap section about my personal experience using the bike over the last couple months. Well, I got this bike back in October, and I've been using it almost daily to go to work. And my commute is about 7.5 miles one way, and it's been fantastic. Like, it's such a great ride every single day, and I've used it throughout all weather types, all seasons, from fall, winter, and like late fall heat. And in the winter even, it was still fine. If you hadn't noticed if you look at pictures of this bike online, mine is personalized. I have done a little bit of painting on the wheels and on the rear, and I have mirrors attached to it. And I've even painted the headlight. I had other plans to do more for the future, but I'll talk about that later on. I have done over 1,000 miles, over almost 1,200 miles, I don't know if you could see on the screen there, but 1,000 miles, quite a lot for the few months I've been using it. And I'm not sure how many other people have done this many miles on this bike, but since I've been using this consistently every day to go to work, and it's just been great. I am able to keep up to pace with most cars, not even though most cars on this road that I usually ride on is sometimes it's a 40, sometimes it's a 30, but most cars are going like 10 over a lot of the times. But I don't really have many issues with that. I just try to stay to the right lane as much as I can. and I do have a horn that I added to it because the stock horn on this bike is just not very loud. I'll throw a clip in there so you guys could hear it, and then also I have a clip in for the one that I purchased, and I'll leave that in that link in the description. As someone who doesn't have much experience with bicycles overall, it's like I've never really owned my own bicycle until now, and this is like a very heavy electric bike. So I've always, when I was younger, I learned how to ride a bike. Obviously, like I had like a little one when I was first learning, but then afterwards, when I grew up, I never had my own. I've always like borrowed other people's or used my sister's. So I don't have much biking experience. And when I first rode on this, it was quite the jump. And the day I actually took it out of the box and decided to ride it, it was pouring rain. But you know what? I still took it out. I wanted to test it out. And I was very, very surprised by the power that this bike has. And like it was almost scary because like I didn't feel like I had any control at first, but like it just takes a little bit to get used to when you hop on. I actually did crash like 2 or 3 times. Like I like whiskey throttled like into a tree, and then I swerved out of the way of someone that was crossing the street because I couldn't maneuver it properly around them. So it's sorry to that lady that was crossing, but I was yeah. After a while, I didn't start using it to go to work for like the first week, and so while I was getting practice with it, and I just had to just like muster up the guts to just go for it and force myself to do it. So I left early in the morning expecting that it would take me a lot longer because I was scared to be on the road with cars. So I went through like the sidewalks as much as I can, but the sidewalks are very inconsistent. Sometimes there is sidewalks, sometimes there's not. So you gotta go on and off until eventually I got comfortable enough going the top speed on this bike that I would just be on the road the whole time and no longer went on the sidewalks because technically it's illegal to be doing that anyway. But yeah, after I got used to it, I got a lot more comfortable with the maneuvering and the speed. Like at first I thought that the off-road mode would be too fast for me and that I wouldn't be very comfortable with it, but I got used to it eventually. And the fact that it goes like 30 plus miles an hour and is awesome. Like it like the speed, the no bike should be able to I don't think should be going that speed, but it's great that it does. And especially with how heavy this bike is, it's 120 pounds, just a few pounds, just not much less than I am. And it's just crazy to me that this bike has enough power to move this heavy frame. However, this bike is not perfect. I have had a few issues with it. Like I've had the fender break off on me, the rear fender completely just snapped off while riding, so I wasn't able to get that replaced. Just the little piece of the front piece of the rear fender is the only thing that stayed secure. And then I have had the bolts of the front fender fall off because they're just so short for the ones that it comes with. So those you would have to get replaced. And there's a lot of the hardware pieces over time, like they do rust, since I have used this throughout like all different like weather types. So if you leave this bike outside uncovered, you're gonna have issues with the bolts rusting, which is an issue that I've had. Even though I did have a bike, I do have a motorcycle cover on mine most of the time when it's at home, but when it's outside, when I'm using it, it's not protected, obviously. And another big issue that I've had with it is the front headlight mount is just horrible. Just very badly designed. You can't adjust the angle of the light, and it's just wasn't screwed in tightly enough in the factory. So when I first had it, it would wobble so much, and I would have to tighten it every few days. And the bolts for it are very difficult to access because it's like a half-inch space right behind the panel of the headlight and in between the mount itself. And I haven't really found a resolution to this, because other than having to completely dismount the headlight from the bike, and I've haven't even been able to do that because the bolts for the headlight itself to the mount are just way too tight. But then the bolts that are mounting the headlight to the frame are the ones that are just too loose. So I haven't been able to fix that. Uh, I think the way I was able to fix it is just tighten it as much as I can. As you can see in the video, I do have a few zip ties connecting it to the forks, and I have some I attached a fender on the bottom side. I attached the front fender to the bottom side instead of using the regular fender rack. As for the battery itself, the the battery is 20 amps, and they claim to get 25 miles like minimum, but I believe that is on the third mode, which is technically the supposed to be the legal speed limit, being 28 miles an hour on mode 3. So technically in that mode, I believe you probably could get the 28 miles going 28, but if you do use it in off-road mode, then it'll be less than that. Personally, from my experience, I've never really gotten it to near dead, but during my commutes, it would be around 16 miles total, and sometimes I get home with 2 battery bars, sometimes I get home with 1 battery bar. I'm not sure exactly the percentage because they don't have that in the UI of the screen, but so it's just battery bars. But I think the maximum I could probably do is like 19 to 20 miles, which still isn't horrible. I guess 1 mile per amp on the battery, which is still pretty decent. And you could, if you ever need to go any further than that, just go slower. Like, you don't need to be going full speed all the time if you're gonna be going far. And I did notice that you have to kind of regulate your throttle or pedal usage. Is as you pedal or use the throttle, you're engaging the motor, and once you're up to speed, you don't need to keep engaging the motor to uh, keep up to speed. Then you're just overusing the motor, and draining the battery even more. So if you kind of get like into a rhythm on how much you need to use it, or how often you need to pedal, or how often you need to throttle, then you can conserve a little bit of battery. So I did notice a couple times when I would be like full throttle or like pedaling as much as I can, especially when there's high winds, I would use up a lot more battery because of the voltage sag in the mornings. I would usually get to work after just losing 1 bar of battery and then get home with 2 bars left. But on days where I would over engage the pedals, or there would be a lot of headwind, I would get home with only 1 bar left, and that would leave me with a lot of range anxiety. Even though I'm sure I probably would have been fine, the weather conditions always affect on your ride, obviously. But since this bike is so heavy, even with like very strong winds, it's not really gonna knock you over. Like I've ridden in like 50 mile per hour wind gusts, and I've been fairly fine. Not I do feel the lateral winds, but I haven't ever needed to like stop. There was one day that I did not ride my bike back home because the weather was so bad up here in Northeast in New York. But that only happened once. I just got a ride home and called it a day. And then yeah, after that I've just been pretty much everyday use. Like you get used to the bike after a while, and then you want to do things to it. Like I've said before, I wanted to customize it, but unfortunately, recently I did get hit by a motorcycle on the road on my way home, nearly just less than a mile away, and there was a van behind me who had moved out to my left, and I guess the motorcycle was speeding behind him, and when the van moved they didn't see me and just flipped me from my left side, knocked me clean off. They didn't stop for me, so couldn't really get any of their information on. I didn't see who it was, but yeah, it was a pretty rough hit, but I was fine. I survived. um the bike was an absolute tank. Just it took the hit and was still usable. It didn't break, it didn't crack or anything, especially on the frame. I did have the forks, the air on the valve for the air on the forks did break, so that's why you see on a few of the on the earlier clips that the forks are compressed. So I needed to get that fixed, and the company did quote me around like $700 to get that fixed, and I was a little bit on the fence on paying that amount because I feel like it was a little bit too much for what it's worth. I was considering getting third-party forks or just shelling out the money and paying the company or Async. But I'm considering getting the Async Pro, and I'm looking to getting my hands on that one, and I might sell this one and just get the upgrade because I have had the desire to get the Pro for a while after just feeling the range anxiety for so long, and like not being able to go to many more places other to work and back. And but even not that much is like the 20 amp hour battery is not bad, but it could be better. Most bikes would be fine with a 20 amp hour battery, but with the stuff I want to do with it, it would be a lot nicer with the 40 amp battery on the Pro. And the Pro also comes as a belt drive, which is less maintenance, and it's just it comes with a lot more features. So if I do get my hands on that, look forward to a video on that. Bike does come with a an app, and the app is not very useful, to be honest, with if you don't have the Pro. The only use I've found with it so far is that you could check their battery life, as if like it tells you the battery percentage and the life of the battery, if it's healthy or not. And besides that, is the app itself is not very useful, because you can't really use any of the features unless you have the Pro version, which has the electronic lock and whatnot, and you can change the pedal modes on it. But there's not really any point to change the pedal mode on your phone when you can just press the buttons on the bike. And the Pro does have a tracking on it, but the standard does not. So it's a little like give and take, depending. If you have the standard version, you don't need it. It's not required to operate. So yeah, that's about all I pretty much had to say about my experience. This isn't the most perfect bike you ever see or you ever ride, but it's the most unique out there. The design is just beautiful. It's not made for everyone, obviously. A lot of people don't really like it. It's just about personal choice, personal experience. Personally, this bike was not my first choice. I honestly wanted to get the Rev one from Ride One Up, but I got this one instead, and I still loved it anyway. And yeah, this video is just showcasing what I think of it, and it's up to you to decide whether you think it's worth the price and the money for compared to many other bikes out there on the market. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like, please leave a comment. If you have any questions, I'll leave any links of everything I have down below. And subscribe if you haven't already, and look for more videos for the future. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day. Bye.
Hey, it's me.